The following WCIA3 Weather Special presentation is brought to you by Bryant Industries. This is Weathering the Storm on WCIA3.
Hello and welcome to Weathering the Storm. I'm Chief Meteorologist Kevin Lighting, joined by meteorologists Jacob Dickey, Adam Sherwinski, and Seth Bonoff. Over the next 30 minutes, we get you prepared for the upcoming severe weather season.
We'll show you what all goes into the National Weather Service issuing warnings and what's different this season with some outdoor warning siren policies.
Also, many people have anxiety when storms arise. We talked to an expert about some of the best ways to alleviate those fears in both adults and children.
And with so many local colleges around, we take a look at what students should do if they are out on campus and severe weather is approaching.
Also, a look back at a tornado anniversary that started 50 years ago to this very day, how one man survived it. But first, have you ever wondered what schools do when severe weather is approaching? Meteorologist Jacob Dickey takes us there to find out.
Tornadoes are most common between 3 p.m. and 8 p.m. in Illinois, but that doesn't mean they can't strike at any time of day. When tornado warnings are issued during the school day, schools are prepared to have students sheltered.
School superintendents across the state, we're always considering the safety and well-being of our kids at all times.
Adam Clapp is the school superintendent in Monticello, where he oversees 1,700 students in his district.
So if a tornado warning is issued and we need to seek shelter, we get on the intercom and tell our students and staff that we'll be evacuating and using our tornado plan.
It's a process that Clapp hasn't had to use during the school day, but they have used during evening events.
The basketball game that we were watching in January of 2023, simultaneously everybody in the stands got an alert on their phone that there was a tornado warning and there was a tornado in the area. We stopped the game, we made an announcement, and we made our way with adults, players, cheerleaders, everybody made their way to the tornado shelter.
But figuring out how to shelter hundreds, if not thousands of people when severe weather threatens goes back to the basics.
We want to be in the lowest level possible in the building and away from windows in an interior hallway. That gives us the most protection from the weather that's going on outside.
And over the years, as schools have been hit directly by tornadoes, it's allowed structural engineers to see weak spots in building designs, causing code requirements to become stricter.
Code in terms of new buildings for schools changed to where when you were adding on the square footage that we added onto our buildings, you had to design a tornado shelter. So our tornado shelter meets the code requirements for the population of students we have on this campus.
And that's not the only safe place Monticello can put students.
If we have more students in the building, we would utilize the area under Miller Gym, which is our cafeteria. It's in the basement, essentially.
And severe weather safety is a part of the emergency preparedness plans implemented and reviewed annually with tornado drills and safety meetings.
At Monticello, we have our school safety meeting each fall, and where we go over our plans with first responders. We host that early September.
With schools having ample access to life-saving weather alerts, you can rest assured that
in the case that we would have a tornado warning happen, we're going to shelter. We're going to use our procedure and communicate with parents as quickly as possible on that.
All right, thanks a lot, Jacob. Next up, college students. They're some of the brightest minds in the country, but they aren't always prepared for severe weather. Seth talked to some of the students to see what they know and has some tips on how they can stay safe.
We've got a tornado down on the camera west of Champaign.
As we all know, tornadoes can happen anywhere at any time here in central Illinois. But when a tornado warning was issued for Champaign County last February, I personally witnessed a lot of college students not exactly know what to do. So I decided to survey about 250 students from U of I, Parkland College, and Lakeland College to test their severe weather awareness. 67% of students don't know when severe weather is coming until the day before it arrives or even later.
Most of the times I would say probably the day before. Yeah, day before, definitely.
If I check the weather, maybe like 2-3 days before, but if I don't check the app, then probably like on the day of.
College students are also almost completely reliant on one source for their weather information.
The emergency alert, just like the standard weather app on my phone.
I guess I just do the weather app on my phone more than anything. I would say the phone, because it always goes off, like the alert goes off on your phone anyway, and it's pretty loud.
Although the phone is a great source, only 40% of students have an alternative way of receiving their weather alerts aside from their phone or a parent or friend telling them. If you are in college or have a child who is, it is essential to have another way of getting weather alerts. Now, let's say a student receives a weather alert while walking on campus like last February. Would they know where to go?
Probably be lost and panicking a little bit if I was walking around on campus.
I have no idea what the designated cover sites are, so yeah, I'd probably be lost as well.
According to our survey, 52% of students are not sure where to go when they are are in class or on campus and severe weather strikes. So what exactly should students do in this situation? Well, if this happens while outside walking on campus, time is of the essence, and it's best just to hop into the first building that you see.
So once you're inside, you're going to want to try to find one of these safety evacuation maps. This is going to show you exactly where you need to be protected from the storm.
And if you aren't familiar with the building, most colleges in the area have a website that allows you to find any campus building's designated storm shelter in less than a minute. For U of I, it's facilityaccessmaps.fs.illinois.edu. With this, you can stay safe no matter the situation.
Thanks a lot, Seth. Well, next up, a new policy in Champaign County for sirens is about to be implemented. We went to the source to find out what it is. Most people know that when they hear this sound, bad weather is coming. But now, it may not always mean it's just for a tornado.
They are not tornado sirens, they are outdoor warning sirens.
John Dwyer is the Champaign County Emergency Manager, who explains what used to constitute sounding these sirens.
Sirens were normally activated for tornadic activity, whether it was a tornado warning or someone saw it on the ground.
But now you may very well hear these sirens for two other non-tornado hazards, and those are winds of 80 miles per hour or higher, or it could be for hail to the size of baseballs or larger. The reason behind this new change stems from last year's derecho that moved across the state, caused 80 to 100 mile an hour wind gusts in central Illinois, and that led to widespread tree and power line damage.
Our sirens cover Champaign, Urbana, U of I, and Savoy, and all of those leaders said this policy makes sense to activate to keep our citizens safe.
During last year's derecho, you might have received a wireless emergency alert on your phone. Now, this was the first time the Weather Service utilized this service.
If they feel it's strong enough to issue a wireless emergency alert where they override everybody's cell phone for those warnings, then it only makes sense for us to activate our sirens.
So the next time you hear the sirens, keep in mind it might be for a tornado, 80 mile an hour winds, or hail bigger than baseballs. Your next step is to always seek out more information, like turning into our live coverage on TV, online, or on our apps. Coming up, do you know what scud is or how to tell what a wall cloud looks like? We'll educate you on that. And some people are afraid of storms. What is storm anxiety and how can you cope with it? But first, can you answer this weather quiz? Weathering the Storm. We'll be right back after the break. before storms form, it can leave some people with some anxiety and stress. Meteorologist Adam Sherwinski tells us how to be prepared mentally for severe weather.
Yoga homeowner Caitlin Gibson isn't a fan of severe weather and is one of many people across the country that suffer from storm anxiety.
So mine started when I got pregnant with my first kid. I don't know what caused it. I never went through any severe storms. It just came on.
Her home has seen its fair share of events over the last few years. That hasn't helped her progress through storm anxiety. Luckily, she's found a way that helps her manage a bit better.
I feel like being prepared helps me the most because I cannot control the weather. I can control how I act in it. We bought a storm shelter to the extreme of preparing, but it makes me feel best.
And while this helps Caitlin and her family stay safe and gives her peace of mind, it isn't as easy for others.
Isolating, obvious fear in facial expressions, or just saying sometimes they may be like, I'm scared, but not say why they're afraid.
It can be hard on kids too. As a 5th grade student, storm anxiety made school harder for me. It made it difficult to concentrate in class when storms were forecasted and gave an opening to bullying that lasted for quite some time. There are ways to help those kids that get anxious get some relief.
Making it fun for them, if they're really afraid, maybe like if there's a thunderstorm, let's say like, let's make it fun, let's count how many times, you know, you hear a thunderbolt and let's scream, you know, and make it really fun for them. Or if they are not able to do that, things such as noise canceling headphones or ear pods where they can listen to other sounds that are more comforting for them might be helpful. Just not allowing them to just be afraid, being able to like be open and talk about, you know, you can be afraid and that's okay.
And for adults, there can be other ways of tackling it.
Involving themselves in things such as going to therapy and processing that fear, and using maybe meditative practices usually are very helpful in learning how to center and like be in control of that fear, or using like cognitive behavioral therapy, which just uncovers the patterns of where that anxiety comes from, are all very helpful tools to like overcome that anxiety.
Thanks a lot, Adam. To the untrained eye, the structure of a severe storm can look awfully complicated, but meteorologist Seth Bonoff is up next to break down the different types of clouds that can show up during a storm.
That's right, Kevin. Springtime is upon us, and that means those severe storms are going to start to become a lot more common. It's not always easy to know what you're looking at when you're seeing these storms, though, so we're just going to go over some basic cloud formations. The first one we're going to talk about is scud clouds, and these are going to be very thin, wispy clouds that actually rise up into our storm, and scud's actually an acronym that stands for scattered cumulus under deck. Now, these clouds themselves really aren't that intimidating. They don't lead to too much, but it does show that our storm is starting to display some vertical motion and that we need to keep an eye out for further development. Now, as that scud continues to rise, we might start to get a little more of a defined thunderstorm base, might start to look a little more turbulent there underneath, and that just shows that our vertical motion is increasing and our storm is starting to become a little bit stronger, developing that stronger updraft. Now, as those clouds continue to build, we might actually see a lowering from our storm. This is what's going to be a wall cloud. Now, the wall cloud is going to be the center of attention. That's part of the storm that you definitely need to pay attention to. Not every wall cloud drops down a tornado, but when we do see tornadoes, they do often form from this wall cloud. Now, not to be confused, sometimes in these wall clouds, we can still have that scud rising. That can look an awful lot like a funnel cloud. Do not confuse the two. You can tell that this is just scud because it's very thin, very wispy, and there's not rapid rotation going on underneath. Now, when we actually do see a funnel cloud, it's going to be a lot more smooth, it's going to be a lot more tubular, and you will see some of that rapid rotation. Now, at the moment, this is still just a funnel cloud because we don't have that connection all the way down to the surface. We don't see any circulation at the surface, but eventually that funnel cloud can make its way all the way down, and right when we start to see that circulation there at the ground, that is when we officially have a tornado on our hands. Now, tornadoes often don't last for more than 10 minutes. They can actually start to really rope out and go back up and dissipate, but that doesn't mean that we have to stop watching our storm because the storm can continue even after the tornado.
All right, really cool there, Seth. Thanks a lot. Coming up, how does the National Weather Service issue warnings for our area? An infamous tornado outbreak anniversary also is today. We'll tell you what happened 50 years ago. But first, can you answer this weather quiz? Weathering the Storm will return after the break. 50 years ago today, April 3rd, 1974, it was the beginning of what is now known as the super tornado outbreak, and it all started right here in central Illinois. Known as one of the most violent tornado outbreaks on record, with 30 of the 148 tornadoes ranked as F4 or F5 on the original Fujita scale. This tornado outbreak killed 319 people across 13 states. But one local man survived to tell us his story a half century later.
50 years. I was 19 years old.
Doug Dietrich was a truck driver.
Awful lucky, I guess. Awful lucky.
Doug would need all the luck he could get on this fateful day.
I just, when it took off that day, I just thought it was going to be another day.
Back then, getting weather reports wasn't as easy as it is today.
All I had for a radio in my semi was an AM radio. And of course, on a day like that, it'd been so staticky, you wouldn't be able to hear anything.
His drive, though, would take him into the direct path of a tornado.
I was driving a semi, hauling coal up to the Tilton Power Plant up by Danville, up on 74. I knew there was a truck stop or a little gas station close to Ogden exit, so I thought I'd try and speed up and get to there, and I realized that I wasn't gonna make it. And then all of a sudden, a tornado dropped out of the sky. So I pulled off the side of the interstate. It was raining so hard you couldn't see nothing. I mean, it was raining. Sat over in the passenger seat for a second, and I felt my truck start rocking back and forth. And so that's when I jumped out of the truck into the ditch. I don't know, I probably could have rode it out just staying in it. Decided to get in the ditch because that's what Dad always said, if a tornado, you get in the ditch. Well, I didn't know the ditch was gonna be full of water though.
That's right, not only was he trying to survive the tornado, but the ditch he was getting into was filling up with water.
This ditch was probably in 2 or 3 feet of water. I mean, I had to hold my head above the water to keep from drowning. So I started bear crawling to get away from the truck when I heard it roll over, and like I say, I bumped into a tree or a fence post or something and just kind of held onto that till it blew over.
Lucky to be alive, Doug says he barely remembers being scared in the moment.
I'm sure I was probably scared, but I don't really remember. I guess when you're 19, you think you're kind of bulletproof.
Doug also remembers how quickly it all occurred.
It seemed like in 30 seconds or a minute, there was nothing. I mean, it was quiet. I mean, I think I even remember hearing a few birds chirping.
Pictures of his truck after the tornado show some of that damage. That night, he reunited with his father, as seen in this Tuscola newspaper clipping that Doug has kept for 50 years. 319 people died during that outbreak, but Doug wasn't one of them.
God must have been with me. God was my co-pilot, maybe.
Amazing. Have you ever wondered what goes into getting the weather warning alerts on your phone? Well, it turns out it's a team effort. Meteorologist Jacob Dickey tells us more.
Weather warnings is not something we do at WCIA. Instead, that's left up to the National Weather Service. It's their job to analyze the storms as they move through and come up with a warning that gets to your phones and your homes in just seconds.
We always have someone who's monitoring the current conditions.
Ed Shimon is the warning coordination meteorologist at the National Weather Service office in Lincoln. It's his role to make sure that when severe weather is happening, things run smoothly.
Almost everybody in the office has the radar going, looking at it, because the more eyes that you have looking at things, the better chance you have of catching subtle features.
And during days when severe weather can last for hours, it requires a plan to make sure everything remains covered.
If you throw all your resources in the first 4 hours of an event and it's going to go 8 hours, you're going to stress the staff a little too. You have to keep people fresh.
The office can also ramp up staffing quickly to address needs based on impacts from the weather.
We'll have as many as 9 to 10 in the operations area on high impact severe weather days.
And when storms are roaring through,
new tornado warning now.
Information and reports can flow in quickly.
That's how we try and not let any one person get just buried with an overload of information, because it can happen. You're like, well, I gotta look at that. Oh, I gotta look at this.
Information and reports come from sources like storm spotters, emergency managers, radar analysis, weather analysts, social media, and even us here at WCIA.
This is a large tornado now, and make sure you're forwarding this to the National Weather Service.
Utilizing all available information is what the Weather Service calls the total observation concept.
Destructive tornado.
That's where you have to have multiple feeds of information for your decision. Because if you have a radar operator doing 100% radar only warnings, that's going to leave out the surface observations or the satellite information or the warning or the high resolution models.
While the decision-making process can be complex, once a decision is made, things move quickly.
From the time that you're looking at a storm and you say, hey, I'm thinking of a tornado warning, till the time it's out the door, really can be a minute. And that is huge because, once you make a decision that a tornado warning is needed, the atmosphere moves fast.
All right, thanks a lot, Jacob. Coming up, what if you are out camping and a tornado is bearing down on you? Look at how kids are being kept safe, and we debut a brand new way to receive weather alerts. But first, can you answer this weather quiz? Weathering the Storm will return after the break.
Weathering the Storm continues here on WCIA 3.
Camp Drake had extensive damage from last year's derecho. Meteorologist Adam Sherwinski tells us how they've recovered and how you can stay safe while being outdoors.
And people said you need to prepare for it. It looks like it's coming towards Champaign, maybe headed right towards Camp Drake. So at that point in time, we came to the dining hall. I was camping here with my sons that week in our troop, and I addressed the camp and said, folks, we have got some severe weather that could be coming in, and we need to prepare for it.
And soon after, they had to use their newest building to help scouts reach safety. The new shower house was supposed to be officially opened the next day. Crews were there earlier in the day putting on the finishing touches.
There was a wall that came up, an angry wall cloud, and it was wind coming that were clocked over 100 miles per hour. And so as we were coming to put people into the shower house behind me, trees just started falling and coming down. We got everybody in, except for we had 2 staff members who were helping to get kids in.
Only 2 injuries occurred to staff members, and they were quickly released from the hospital. The damage to camp was fairly extensive, but camp was back up and running just a few days later.
It looked like a war zone out here, so we had to clean a lot of trees up, and we did that. We got those all cleaned up. We were able to get buildings taken care of that might have been unstable and said, okay, these are good, roped them off, got things taken care of.
There's still more that needs to be done. White says that the shower house will now be where they go if severe weather strikes again. But what should you do if you're camping or on a hike and want to stay safe?
If you do see severe weather, find shelter, whatever shelter that might be. It doesn't have to be a brick building, but if you can find somewhere where you can get inside of it that looks like it's a safe place to go, get inside of it. And look above you, see if there's trees around, or find an open place and try to get in the lowest spot that you can possible, because that's going to be your best bet to be able to be safe.
Stay weather aware and also be sure to practice the same safety measures you would in calmer weather, like letting someone know where you plan on hiking.
Thanks, Adam. We are excited to debut a brand new way to get severe weather alerts. Introducing Weather Call. You can sign up at WCIA.com or scan this QR code. Now, the way it works is you will get a phone call directly from us in the event of severe weather. It sounds something like this.
This is WCIA3 Chief Meteorologist Kevin Leidy. You are in the immediate area of a rotating thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado at any moment.
For just $12 a year, you can now get alerted the old-fashioned way, right to your home, cell, or even work phone, and even get text messages or emails. To learn more, log on to WCIA.com or scan the QR code now. All right, that wraps up our show for tonight. Thanks so much for joining us.
As always, you can find out more about all of these stories online at WCIA.com.
Don't forget to follow us on all our social media pages.
And make sure to download the WCIA Weather app to stay up to date.
And don't forget that brand new service, Weather Call. Go on and sign up for that today. Thanks so much for watching. Stay weather aware. Keep an eye to the sky. Have a good night.
This has been Weathering the Storm on WCIA 3. Brought to you by Bryant Industries.